My topic is actually really looking at personal response systems and using polling, in-class polling, to engage students at a little bit higher level of critical thinking. So personal response systems, the definition of it is actually using a form of technology in order to poll students to engage them into the content of your classroom. Having said that, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a couple different examples within the next few minutes. Looking at also creating an environment that is going to be conducive to using this form in your classroom. What I have found is when I first started doing this, my end of semester evaluations plummeted. Students did not like it. They found the flipped classroom very challenging. But I stuck with it with Deb Hardy saying, yes, this is a good thing and keep on going. And now I'm finally seeing the results of all that effort, because flipping a classroom is very challenging. It's very time consuming, and putting in this type is a lot more, students do enjoy it. I still have students that are saying, you know what, this is something that I'm not quite used to and it's not really my style, but the majority do actually appreciate it now. So I'm finally seeing that, but it really took a lot of trying to set that environment so they understand kind of the method behind the madness. So I actually have a slide that I didn't put in here, I didn't think about it until just now, but it actually describes if we're just talking to students, they're only remembering about 10% of what we're actually saying, which isn't very high. And if you engage them, they can remember up to 90%. So a lot more effective in the teaching style. Letting them know that this is actually my favorite. It uses no technology though. So I do incorporate some technology piece of it, but I also use cards. So at the beginning of each rotation, they all get a set of cards. They are responsible for keeping these cards the entire section, and they have to participate. So I do a lot of questions with nursing. It's all NCLEX style types questions. So that is pretty much how I format all of my class time, is questions and discussion. So it is still anonymous because, well, as I know how they're answering, but their peers don't, because what I actually do is tell them if they think that number 3 is their correct answer, stick it in the front, and then nobody behind them can see exactly how they're answering. I do not continue with content until I see everybody has their number up. So initially, the first couple of questions that I ask, there's a few that are kind of stragglers and they don't want to participate, and I just reinforce, you know what, I need to see every card up before we continue. And they learn very quickly that they must participate. It gives me an opportunity. The reason why I like the cards is I can see which students prepared ahead of time. Because they do have narrated PowerPoints that they are required to listen to prior to coming, and they also have the readings. So I can see who's actually doing the prep work and who's not. And then if students, after their first exam, if I know that they're doing the prep work and there's a disconnect with the material, I can work with them a little bit more. So it gives me an opportunity to identify some students that might be struggling and to work a little bit more one-on-one with them. And I tell them this is the time to miss the questions. So if they are going to miss, this is when they want to miss it versus on the exams. Okay, so the students actually do really like these. And then letting them know the style is a little bit different and the benefits behind it, and that they understand, again, that method behind the madness. So they do have some buy-in with it. What we are going to do is look at a couple different systems. So I'm just gonna kind of demonstrate some of the ones. Actually, thanks to Natalie yesterday, we actually did see one of the personal response systems, so that was a great lead-in. I actually have not ever used that particular one, so it was nice to see another format of it. I have used two in the classroom, and I'll kind of go through what are some pros and cons to each of them. Okay, so like the card system, it's not completely anonymous because I do know how individual students are answering. So that can be a little bit intimidating for them, but to just create that environment that it is a learning environment. So it's okay if they're not getting them correct all the time, okay? Okay, the other system that I do use is Pingo. This is really important to tell students though. If they do pingo.com, it is going to take them to like a Penguin site. So they cannot, this is actually a slide that I just kind of copy and pasted from one of the first classes that I do of the semester, just to kind of generate some ideas about what community nursing is about. Okay, so what I'm actually going to have you do is participate. So let me minimize this. Hang on. Okay. Okay, so if you would go to, let me go back to this slide real quick. Okay, if you have a device with you, if you enter in that website, so it's pingo.upb.de. You don't have to put the backslash. Okay, so it should take you to the site, and it should say, like, enter a code. Okay. So what I do is on the first day, this is the first activity that we do, and I have them, the objective is create a list of everything that comes to mind when you think of community nursing. And I make it very clear that this could be things that are positive that they've heard, it could be stereotypical, it could be myths, keep it professional. I added that in after seeing what the comments were yesterday on Natalie's, some of Natalie's questions. But I've actually never had an issue with students before entering anything that was not considered professional. Yeah, after seeing that, I was like, ooh, I may have to add professionalism into that piece of it. But okay, so is everybody there to where it says enter a code if you're going to participate? Okay. All right. You know, I have two search engines open, so okay. So then what I do is there's other ways that you can do this, and I'll kind of go through what some of the advantages of this is. But if you go up into survey design, you can actually create populated questions that you can access. I actually like the quick start feature because it allows me to have students enter in as many comments as they would like. Okay, so I always enter text and tag. The options, I go to any number, so they can put 10 things in if they want to. And then it gives you a time frame, okay? And then once I hit start, I actually, I'm gonna actually pause this real quick. Okay, so then your number is this blue number here. So if you were to enter 512678, and then it should say waiting or something to the extent of that. Okay.
Rock the vote.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, you would hit like that rock the vote. Okay. And then it should say waiting for me. Okay. So then once all the students get to that point, what I do is I just repeat it. And I'm just going to put, we'll do 45 seconds just to keep it a little bit shorter. And then I'm just going to hit repeat. And it should, did it open it up for all of you? Okay, so then go ahead and just start typing. So to pretend you're my group of students and put in whatever comes to mind when you think of community nursing. Community nursing. So it'll be interesting to see what the comments are. Because we have a very mixed group here. And you can also enter one-word answers. You can enter phrases, 2-word, 3-word. It doesn't matter. And hit vote or submit. Vote. Okay. Okay, so actually one thing I apologize that I forgot to tell you is what you would want to do is keep hitting add field before you vote. Okay, so I always tell my students that. I kind of forgot that piece of it. Okay, so then it does put it into a word cloud. And what I noticed is yesterday, the system that Natalie was using, the word cloud, if you entered in like helping people out in the country, it would put like helping people out in the country. It didn't put it as one response. So this particular system actually puts it as one response into the word cloud. So I really like that feature. And that's why I always go to Quick Start for this particular question. And then you can also, so it's the word cloud, but then you can switch the view and you can put it into the table. So this does do by frequency. Okay. The code, once you hit like Quick Start, that's why I always actually, if you pre-populate it, it would give you the code. When you pre-populate the questions into the survey design one up here. When you do Quick Start, I always run one first because then I want the students to have that full time that I'm giving them. I get the code, I stop it, and then I just restart it as a second piece of it.
Every time you do a question,
Yes.
you always have to request for code.
Yes, and it will change the code. So every student group has a different code that I have. Good question. Okay. So again, I really like this one for a couple of different reasons. One is that it puts it into table, the word cloud, it pieces a whole entire response together as one instead of separating it out. The one disadvantage in the classroom, I have not seen this. Sometimes if they don't have technology that they can use, what I do is, this used to be a paper and pencil, and then we would put it up on the dry erase boards. They would always work together. Now with technology, I had them do it all individually. If somebody has a hard time getting it to work or they don't have a device, they pair up. And they just work together. And I tell them it's not necessarily about working with the technology. That's not the key with this. It's I want to see what their responses are. And then what I do is I use this and what their ideas are coming into the course, and then we talk about what are the expectations of the course, what are we going to be doing, and it's a great discussion. So it's always different every single rotation, but it just really depends on what their responses are as to what that discussion looks like. Okay. The other issue with using the technology piece is not every student may be participating. So they can make it look like they're participating if they send a text. I mean, you know all the gimmicks. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're participating. Okay. And that's the one advantage to the cards and going old school is I know everybody is participating. They have to. So, okay. Any questions on this piece? Yes?
Sorry, Kimberly, for this website,
Yes.
since it's short answer, are you able to pre-select a correct answer?
You can't, if you go into survey design, it gives you more of that traditional multiple choice type of format. And yes, you can pre-select.
But not for a short answer?
No. And this is the one I use for this one because it is a free. Again, I just want to see what their ideas are. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
But can you also set up multiple choice questions?
You can. If you go into survey design, it gives you more choices. I mean, and you can even Even with the free text, you can limit it to just one response if you wanted to see like what is their first thing that pops in their head. I mean, and it's pretty easy, user-friendly, and the students usually have no issue on their end.
So what's the end result of the answer if it's a multiple choice, like ABCD? Does it have a graph, like a bar, like?
Yes, yes. And we're gonna go through Poll Everywhere is another one that I have used in the past. That's more of like your traditional like multiple choice. Because again, it does have a free text, but it does the same thing that happened yesterday where it will separate words in a response. Yes?
Do you have a subscription or do you use?
No, this is free.
Okay. Did you get everything you need to do what you want to do with the free version?
Free, yep. And so I use this free. You can just, if you go onto the site, it will say like create account. Everything's free. Same thing with Poll Everywhere. Everything that I've done is all free. They will try to get you to say, hey, you can have this view or this data if you subscribe, but I never have. Okay. And the other thing is students never receive a prompt for as if they're, well, this doesn't have a text option. But yesterday I did notice one of the advantages of the system that Natalie was using is when I was participating on my cell phone, I did not ever receive a prompt saying that this could potentially lead to a cost to my account, which was really nice. The Poll Everywhere is the other piece that I have used. Here we go. Okay. With Poll Everywhere, again, this is a very user-friendly system. Again, it has its advantages and disadvantages as well. Very similar to the Pingo one that we just looked at. Not every student may be participating. And they're going to feel very comfortable with not participating. So that's my only word of caution because you can't see who is responding and who isn't. And especially if you want, and when you look at the graph, it just gives you percentage. It doesn't give you percentage of how many students are participating. But yeah, if you go into the polls, I mean, what we can do, so with this one, okay, you can actually go, if you would like to participate, I will give it to you as an option instead of mandating. So what I would do is if you are using Poll Everywhere, I would recommend to students to use the website. Okay, so it's pollev.com. And then when you create the questions, because you do have to create these ahead of time, because you need the code. So it will tell you when you go to sign in, create an account, you create an account, and then what it did was it put Susan McClend, and then it gave me a number. So every time students go in to access it, you have to type in after the backslash that code. The nice thing about this is if you use this consistently in the classroom, the students don't have to keep entering that code every time because it automatically recognizes that they're in that section. And especially on the phone, as soon as if they would type in that 30607 and text the code, every time they would just hit that on their phone, it will automatically bring up the questions. So that's kind of an advantage. They don't have to necessarily log in every time. Okay? So is everybody to the people that are participating, did it pop up the question? Okay.
Sorry, could you go back over again what the website is?
Yes, it is. It's Poll Everywhere if you're creating, but for right now, it is if you type in poll, pollev.com, and then It should take you to their website. Okay. And then it will say like the access to type in the code. Okay. And then it's Susan McClendon, MCCLEND 440. And then once you get that in, it should automatically, because what I did is I've already activated this question. So as soon as you log in, it should pop up. So there's a couple different ways that you could use it. Once you type in a question and have it ready for your students, you do have to hit this activate button right here. Otherwise, they're not going to see the question. So you do have to hit activate. Personally, I wait a little bit of time to have all students respond first, and then to hit show results. Okay, and then it will put it into a graph. So if those people so somebody potentially, and especially with the questions that I'm using, I don't want them to talk to each other. And it's not a group effort, it's an individual effort. So potentially, if you show the results, the students can say, oh, the majority are answering B, I'm gonna say B too, and that's probably the correct answer. So I usually will hesitate, wait for everybody to kinda put their response in first, and then hit show results. So then they don't. Okay. And it's dynamic, so it will keep changing as people keep participating.
Sue, does it show you the numbers that are participating so you know when to hit? It doesn't
No.
go down. Okay.
And again, that's a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to watch. So when eyes come up, then to hit show results.
So if you did a texting one, notice on the web browser, it gives you a guest code or something.
Yes.
You can make a name. When people text it, does it show the phone number, or what does it show on your end?
It doesn't show anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. And that's a great question because there are like settings as to like how people can respond, audience restriction, and this is where like the cost comes in. So it will say, where was it? There's one that it'll say you have to purchase. But it will, so yeah, students may be a little bit more hesitant to input their information because they think that I'm going to be able to see what their response is. The other thing is when I was playing around with it, my particular phone, using the text feature, it did say I may be charged if I send these. So again, that's why I would recommend, because if students get that, there's no way they're going to participate because they're not going to want to have that cost added to their cell phone bill. And that's why I would say I would recommend that they go through the website because there's going to be no messages that say there's a potential cost. Okay. Yes.
When you first started speaking, you mentioned how your students came across your emails and they didn't like this.
Yes.
So now you've been doing this for a while. Are you seeing positive comments?
Yes. Yes.
So what are they saying?
Again, like initially, I think my first year here, I've been here for about 6 years now. My first year here, went into Deb's office and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna be fired. These evaluations are horrible. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. It's something you're kind of a little bit more out of the box and you're gonna get pushed back. And I think as more people are incorporating that, it helps ease them in a little bit because I'm like 100% flipped. Now, almost every student evaluation is very positive. They say, I really like that format. It really engaged me into critical thinking. They like the cards. They like the questions. Every once in a while, I still get one student that's like, this isn't my style, my preferred learning. I would rather you just feed it all to me and tell me what is going to be on the test, which I don't. So. But yeah, they've gotten so much better, so much better. Actually, if it wasn't for Katie, I probably would have quit after the first year because they were bad. They were really bad. Okay. Any other questions about, I know it's just a brief overview of each of them. If like you go back to your offices and you want to start playing around with one of these two, and if you have questions, you could drop me an email or give me a call and I can help you out, kind of walk you through if you need some help. They are actually very user-friendly though. Yes?
I'm curious if you could speak at all to what percentage of students don't have a device with them that they're able to participate.
So actually what I have noticed is pretty much every student will have a device, either a phone, a tablet, a laptop, but one or two students may have a hard time connecting to it. And at that point, I'm like, you know what, I don't want to spend class time teaching you how to connect to the device, just work with a partner. And I don't word it quite like that. I just say, you know what, it's okay. You know what, go ahead and work with your neighbor. And you can work together on this one. Because really, especially this one, usually there's no issues with as far as from a student inputting into it. With the Pingo one, there's been maybe one student in every group I have that has a hard time. And it's usually a student that isn't as tech savvy.
So which is better?
They both have their advantages. So this is really great for like those multiple choice questions. I'm going to be incorporating a little bit more of this into classes probably in the spring. Try to transition out of my cards a little bit. But I really do like the Pingo one because it is that free text question. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. I mean, my biggest word of caution would be just to make sure that all of your students are engaged and actually participating. And if you have a large class, that's going to be very difficult to do. Any other questions? Anything?
If you know, so you ask a question like this, what percentage of students actually answer it?
From what I've seen,
Okay, you don't get the data, because here you just get the percentages.
Exactly.
So you don't know out of how many participants,
Yeah.
so you're not real clear. Go ahead, you answer.
absolutely. And that's the biggest disadvantage. And because I'm trying to identify those students that are struggling early on, that's why I do prefer the cards. Because with this, like you said, you can't see how many students are participating. So if you have a class of 20, 10 might be participating, 15, all 20. I mean, you can look and see and you can kind of walk around, but it's still not going to guarantee that they're not sending a text message. And actually, to be all honest, yesterday during Natalie's presentation, a few of them I didn't answer because I was like, I wonder if it's going to pop up. I was just kind of testing it, and I'm like, you know what? I can very easily just sit here and not answer any, and it would never be known. And that's how the students are going to feel.
Do you know that?
No.
That's what I'm saying, so like if they don't know, you don't know.
Then you could, yeah.
I mean, you don't like say, hey, we can't see this.
No,
It's just,
no.
Okay, so everyone's gonna do it, so if they
Yeah.
don't know, you don't know, then I feel they're more apt to do it.
Absolutely. And I think if you do walk around, I mean, nursing is very different in that most of the students are engaged. By the time they get to us, they want to be there for the most part, and they want to do everything that they can. And what I tell them is these questions that I give them, they're a great chance to see how I format questions. It gives them an insight into like what I'm thinking, and it's a great discussion generator. So I will pop a question up first thing when they walk in, they sit down, they get settled, and then we'll have a discussion. And I'll tell them, you know what, like that's why I kind of tailor. Every class is always a little bit different because if 100% of the students are getting a question right, I might hit one or two key points and we move on. Versus if 50% of the class is getting it wrong, I'm going to spend more time.
back to your cards, you said you're supposed to bring it to every class.
Mm-hmm.
How successful are you with that?
Most of them do. There might be one student, and I usually keep one extra set in my stuff just in case. But I do tell them the first day they are responsible for bringing them. They need them every class. Tuck them in their binders of something that they're going to bring every single day. And most of the time they do. Every once in a while, because I do some select all that apply questions, sometimes I will have fingers going up, and I'm fine with that for a class. I had one student, because it is select all that apply, she got creative with her buddy, and there was like 3 that were correct, so she was like, and then she was like, hold up 3. And so I was able to see that she had all the pieces to it. So she got a little bit creative. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, they're actually, again, it's that setting the expectation day one, and they usually get there. I don't know.
You get a bit of wandering out.
Well, that's what I'm like, that's what I think, like,
Right, you know, yeah, because he knows everything, yeah.
well, that's, I think probably some of the other areas, you would have much more, a greater challenge.
I'm just thinking, I have students that don't bring a pencil.
Well, exactly. Well, that, I was gonna say, yeah, I would say I usually, yeah, I never had that issue where the students haven't brought a pen or a pencil. So, okay. Well, I think we're out of time. So thank you for coming. Again, if as you're working, please email me. Hopefully it was helpful to see a couple different formats.